we're talking about Dragon's Dogma. But first, let's talk about Western RPGs. Western RPGs, to my mind, certainly fantasy Western RPGs, became very popular because of Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion. Now, Oblivion certainly... Oh, just a second, you'll be able to see my sexual fantasies here. Oblivion was a very large world, and certainly it felt very next generation. That's next gen for the previous gen. Or was it next gen for the gen before then? Anyway, Oblivion certainly felt like a step up from what we'd seen before. It was a huge world, and coming out of the sewers into the sunlight, it looked beautiful, and there were all these towns you could visit, and you could say, I want to go over there to the top of that mountain. You could go there. And a lot of people thought that Western RPGs were brilliant because, in comparison, Japanese RPGs, well, they had lots of side quests and these stories that were about people waking up with no memories, and they're maybe teenage kids, and they've got spiky old hair, and they thought, oh, these things go on for 80 hours, even though Oblivion goes on for 80 hours. Now, Japanese RPGs, they're bloated, but the thing is, every single part of the game has been designed by somebody. Western RPGs seem to use a lot of procedurally generated sort of dungeons. I mean, you know the thing, all the tile sets look the same. So, Dragon's Dogma is interesting because it's the Japanese take on a WRPG. A JWRPG, you might call it. Unfortunately, Dragon's Dogma suffers from a lot of the same things that Western RPGs have themselves. For example, a starting town that's very boring, and wide spaces between the towns that, for some reason, you can't actually fast travel unless you have an item that gets used up every time, and they're expensive. And you get boring quests like kill 10 rats and get 1,000 gold. So it doesn't really start off on the best footing. But where Dragon's Dogma becomes a more interesting creature is in two very Japanese systems. The first is this, the pawn system, P-A-W-N, which is an AI little companion that you name and design and give a class, either fighter, ranger or mage, and you give them a personality like aggressive or cautious, and you go around with them and level up with them, and you can enlist two other pawns that could be from your online friends, or they're just random creations of other people, and you go around in a little band of 4 people and you take on all comers. And I mean, although they're all beyond yours, they're just other people's kind of creations, they do have these little sound bites and things that does make you feel like you're travelling with some companions. And the other brilliant system that Dragon's Dogma has is on the right trigger, which is a grab button. And the grab button is interesting because not only can you pick up smaller enemies and throw them off cliffs, which always remains hilarious, but also you fight monsters like chimeras and
ogres,
very kind of classical fantasy monsters, and these monsters are much bigger than the regular monsters, and you can do things like climb up them. Early on, you fight a hydra, and you can climb up on one of its heads and cut it off, and you do things like trolls with armoured underpants, and you climb up their backs and cut them off. And that system, essentially it's like Monster Hunter meets Oblivion. That system is a lot of fun to use. Combat is normally a very poor area in Western RPGs, but Dragon's Dogma has a really wonderful approach. The thing is, the pawn system and the combat system aren't enough to detract from the fact that between areas it is very boring and very dull, and you've seen it all before. The first 5 hours of Dragon's Dogma, they're interesting, but you don't really feel they're that special. Of course, everybody says that the final sections are brilliant, so maybe you will want to keep playing, just so you can see what's supposed to happen. It's so exciting.
alright, it's alright.